Hello YouTube friends, welcome back. Welcome if you are new. Don't forget to like and subscribe while you are here. So let's get into this little chatty casual video. I had a community tab post a little while ago calling for questions so I could do a Q&A and let you get to know a little bit more about me, about witchcraft in general, whatever it is that you had questions on. So I have a couple of those to cover right now, and I think it's going to be a little bit longer because I have like detailed answers to these. So if you have any additional questions that you want me to cover in a part 2, or general Q&A to come sometime in the future, let me know down in the comments whatever your questions are, whether that's about me, about my practice, about witchcraft in general, and I will try my best to answer those. But first, let's get into the questions that we already had. So first question comes from Julia, and that is, do you have any tips for practicing visualization? So she mentioned in her comment that it was just hard for her to totally visualize, things would be shaky, it wouldn't exactly be what she was trying to picture. So the idea of visualization, if you're not familiar, is just in your mind's eye, seeing the outcome that you want to happen. So that is important in witchcraft, just knowing what the intent of your spell is. What would you like to happen if your spell manifested exactly the way that you want? So I actually have a couple of different answers to this. First of all, some people will never get visualizing down. That is just not how their brain works. So if that is you, that's completely fine. Do not get yourself upset over it. It is in general something that comes with time and practice, but if you feel like you've been putting in the time and practice and it's not happening, don't stress yourself out about it, because some people it will never come naturally to them, and in which case you would just use a different method of getting clear on your intention. We always talk about, the mind's eye and visualizing, but that doesn't mean it's the only way. You can absolutely write it down. So that comes a lot easier for many people, especially if they are decent writers and enjoy writing and enjoy pen to paper. Write down exactly what it is. So maybe you can't see that exact picture in your mind's eye, but if it's written down on a piece of paper, then that's all you need. That is telling the universe exactly what it is that you are wanting and picturing, even if you can't get that exact image in your mind. And you can speak it out loud too if you need to, whatever it is that works best for you. It does not have to be just, this is the be all end all. Again, something that just comes with time and practice, especially if you have never done this before and you are new to witchcraft and you were never in any other sort of discipline that required visualization. It is a totally new practice. So like everything else, it just comes with time and patience. So there are a lot of different YouTube videos that you can watch to help guide you through this. And there are some books that you can read. I will link any below that I can think of to help you, that have some exercises to guide you through this. And the one exercise that is recommended more than anything else is the apple technique. So this is like the basics where everybody kind of starts, and you just keep practicing this over and over again until you get better at it. So the idea is that you just you start by picturing a red dot, like a two-dimensional flat red dot. And then you imagine it growing in size until, it's about that big. And then you picture it turning into a plate. So it's now a red plate. It's got kind of like the rounded edges. Just picture that plate in your mind. Maybe it's kind of a shiny finish. And eventually, as you go through this exercise, the idea is that you are turning it into an apple. So you are going to want to visualize it rounding out. So the plate starts getting into a circle. You round that into a circle. And then eventually you add on the edges. So it starts to look like an apple and become the colorings of an apple. And then you see the stem and the leaf growing out, and then you are like turning the apple in your mind. So going from red dot to apple is one of the top visualization techniques that everybody sort of practices. So maybe on the first day, you can only get from the little dot to a plate, and that's fine. Like, you just add on the steps as you go, and just try to get to that plate, close your eyes, and see the plate in your mind. What does that red plate look like? And then eventually you get onto the apple and spin the apple around, put it on a tree, whatever it is. You just get better and better at it as you practice that. And that is something that's really easy to remember. Everyone has seen an apple. They know what it is supposed to be looking like, and you just keep trying to see that in your mind's eye. So I wouldn't start, like if you're struggling with it, don't start with trying to visualize your spell outcome or anything that's really complicated, or animals, just apple. Start with the apple technique. So I hope that helps. Again, I will link more resources to sort of guide you through that, but it really is just patience, practice. But if it never comes to you, don't worry about it. Write your intentions down. It works just as well. The next question comes from Northeast to Southwest Gardening. They specifically asked about crystals. There is a lot of debate with crystals about whether they actually, work on their own, or whether they are considered, junk science, that they don't have any of these like healing properties that we think that they do. So she just wanted my thoughts on that. So I am happy to give those thoughts because I have a lot of thoughts on crystals. So on the podcast in season 1, there were episodes on crystals, and I have talked about them in like every iteration since then, because I love crystals. I use them, and I do think that they have energy and properties of their own. There are a few different ways to look at this. So first off, within the scientific community, people argue that it's junk science because these crystals don't have inherent healing or energetic properties, that they are just a piece of rock. And whoever is experiencing any sort of energy or experiences from them is having a placebo effect. And to that I say, so what? So the placebo effect works. It works in crystals and it works in medicine. It works across the board. That if people think that this item is working, then it changes their mind and it works. They feel the effects, they get to the benefits. So even if it is a placebo effect, who cares, right? I mean, it's working on some level. It kind of goes, that idea kind of goes with there's a form of witchcraft that's called chaos magic. Chaos magic believes that nothing, anything pictured behind me, crystals, candles, whatever it is, nothing has any sort of energy. It's not helping you. All that matters is your mind. You're the one controlling it. So you may add on things to help, focus your mind and drive the intention, but your mind is the only thing that matters, and all that matters is you. So the idea of the placebo effect kind of goes along with chaos magic, that you are the one putting the intention in, you are the one that's doing the healing. It's your mind that is making the spell work, that is putting out the energy, that is, doing those healing vibes or whatever your intention is. And the crystal helps you focus that, visualize that, whatever it is that you need a crystal there for. But in this idea of chaos magic, the crystal means nothing. It doesn't have any sort of properties on its own. It's completely you that's making it work. So that idea of placebo effect kind of goes along with chaos magic. And I think more of us are chaos witches, chaos magicians than we like to think that we are. We all seem to have a lot of properties of this type of magic. But let's get into some other ideas, because that is where I fall on the scale. So personally, I am an animist, and I believe in animism, and that means that everything on this earth has its own sort of energy and spirit. So we tend to think of only humans as having that. A lot of people will include animals in there, especially pets in the home, because they can see that. They can see that they have their own personality and spirit that's animating them. But I also believe that everything, like trees and crystals, plants, when you go out into nature, you can feel the tree has a different energy. And they all have their different spirits that are worthy of the same respect. It may not look exactly like humans and pets do, but they are still deserving of our same level of respect. So that is what I believe. Everything has an energy. So I absolutely believe that crystals have their own energy. Each one has their own properties because they are a natural item. They come from the earth, and I believe that everything that sort of comes from the earth has its own innate properties. But I personally believe that you don't even need to be an animist like me to think that crystals have energy, because crystals are used for their energy. That not every single one, but specifically the quartz family has energy. It's called the piezoelectric effect, and were used in radios, crystal radios. That is how they changed the frequency in AM radios when they first came out, was through the current through the crystal, because the crystal has energy, and they can apply heat and pressure, whatever, to the crystal to have this additional vibration. So I will link the articles on piezoelectric effect, but that is a real scientific provable thing that, at least in the quartz family, they have been used because of their energy, because of their vibrations. So I don't know, it's not junk science, it's how radios work. So those are sort of my thoughts on crystals. I do believe that they have their own energy. I believe even science believes that they have energy, and that these different vibrations work on some level. Whether that is just a little bit of energy, whether that's healing, I think science hasn't caught up to that yet. I will say crystals and anything else behind me, candles, herbs, cannot heal you without the help of actual, modern medicine and doctors. This is not a excuse or reason. I'm not telling you to just use a clear quartz and that's going to cure all of your issues. If you have health issues, go to a doctor. No matter what witchcraft says, I think that witchcraft and science work in tandem. One is not separate from the other. I absolutely believe in modern medicine and getting vaccinated. My dad was a pediatrician. I believe in medicine. I believe in vaccinations. So I am not one to say that you have this issue that a crystal is going to completely heal you and you'll be fine. I always say, go to the doctor. Go to the doctor all the time. Go to the doctor. Take the modern medications. Do what you need to do. Use crystals and herbs, candles, whatever it is, to help with that, to give an added boost. Whether that is an actual energetic added boost, whether that is the placebo effect, I don't think that it can hurt. Even if you do think it's just a placebo effect, at least it's changing your mind, and the mind is everything. It is so mysterious. We have no idea how everything works. There's so much that science has not discovered about our brains. So if, having that crystal makes your mind think that you are getting better, and your mind in turn helps you get better and sends that through the rest of your body, lots of ways that we don't understand how the mind works. So I am all for crystals, lots of crystals. I do not think that they're junk science. I think that they have, energy and vibrations in their own right that science has shown. I think that as part of nature and it's being an animist, that they also have their own innate properties. So I love crystals. That's basically the sum of that. So I hope that answers your question about crystals and the idea that it's just junk science or placebo effect. But if you have any other additional questions about crystals, let me know. The next question comes from Snicket Storm, and it is about pyromancy. So they just asked, because I had mentioned it in a previous podcast episode, just, a little bit more about what that is, what the heck's pyromancy. So I'm going to get into that just a little bit, but I feel like this is a pretty big topic. So if I don't cover it well enough, please let me know, because I can make it into like a full YouTube video probably of like all of the different details. So first I want to say there are two sort of realms with working, with the like flame of a candle is really what we're looking at here. When we talk about pyromancy, it's one end of it is the scrying idea, right? So you have the flame going and then you sort of let your mind go blank and stare at that flame until you're in a trance-like state and images start to come to you. It's like a form of divination. But when we talk about pyromancy in particular, you are reading that candle flame. So rather than letting these images come to you as a form of scrying, you are specifically making a candle spell. And then as that spell is going and that candle is burning down, you are reading what that flame is saying. And what the flame does is going to influence what answers you get and how your spell is going to manifest, really. So there's no way that I could cover everything. It's not even something that I do regularly in my practice, so I wouldn't even be able to tell you all of the answers without studying it further. But basically, a clean, strong flame means that what you are trying to manifest with that spell is going to come to fruition relatively soon, exactly how you expect it to. You have to be sure that you are in a place where nothing is affecting the way your candle flame moves. So not outside, not anywhere drafty, not anywhere that kids and animals are coming out. Any little movement can affect that flame and therefore your reading. So it has to be someplace that's really steady, that you can sit for a while, nothing is affecting it. You have to be sure of that. But if you are getting that clean, strong flame, clean burn, then that means that everything is going according to plan. So it's really when you get something other than that that affects what the meaning is and what the reading is. So that could be smoke coming off or crackling or dripping in a strange way. It could just be, if it's a smaller flame, all mean various things. So I'll just tell you a couple of the ones that I'm familiar with. If it is a smaller flame, that means that you just need to have patience, that it's going to take longer to manifest than you think that it's going to. So maybe you were thinking that this was going to be like a 1 week spell, but maybe it's going to be a couple of months, that you need to have patience. It's going to work, but just slower. If it's dancing or crackling, that means that something is working against you. It's just in general that you are doing something wrong. If it's dancing or crackling, it means that you might not have enough energy. So right before a spell, you have to gather that energy and then put the energy into that candle, into that spell. So maybe you didn't gather enough energy, so you're just not strong enough. Or it could mean that whatever it is you're trying for is just not in your favor. Sometimes the universe is just trying to tell you that this is not in your favor, it's not a good idea. If the flame is flickering, and again, make sure there are no outside influences affecting this, but if it's flickering, it could mean that your spirits or deities are trying to communicate with you. So if you are somebody that asks for spirit help or for deity help, if it flickers, that means that they've heard you. If there is popping, and again, you don't have oils on there, you don't have herbs on there that would affect that and make that popping sound, but in general, it's a candle type you're familiar with and it's never popped before and now all of a sudden it's popping, or if it's a very uneven burn and burning down just one side, that means that there is something actively working against you that is an outside force. So it means that you are coming up against a lot of resistance. Another one is the change in the color of the flame. So if you will know it when it happens. It's not, the traditional color that it's been burning at, all of a sudden there is a change that could be, like a bluish tint or get a lot brighter, like an orange color. There's a lot of different ways that a candle color can change. So if it does change, that means that a higher power is taking interest. So it could, be a deity that you're working with, but usually it is something that you didn't even intend to ask, but they think that they're interested and this seems like something fun that they want to be a part of. So it just means that some sort of higher power, whatever it is that you believe in, has taken interest in your spell. And something else that you would read is the smoke coming off. It's not all just about the flame, it's the smoke that either is coming off while you burn or after you snuff it out or let it burn all the way out. Now, when you snuff it out or let it burn out, there is going to be some smoke. You have to sort of expect that. What you're trying to read is if there's a lot of smoke. If it seems like there's more smoke coming off of this than you're used to with a candle, then it's important to read that smoke as well. The main thing you're trying to read is whether that is, if it's coming towards you or if it's going away from you. So if it's going away from you, that's a good thing. That is whatever you have manifested, then it's going outwards. The only time that you would want it to come inwards is if you're doing a health spell on yourself. So you are doing some sort of health magic working, then you want that smoke to come towards you because that healing energy is coming towards you. But otherwise, anything else that you're doing a prosperity spell and that smoke goes out, that's a good thing. It's going out into the universe and that's what you want to see. And absolutely, if you're doing some sort of baneful working. So if you did a baneful working and that smoke is coming towards you, you don't want that. That means that it's, backfiring on you of something bad. So you would want to cleanse yourself, to undo it, reverse it, whatever it is. So if you were doing a baneful working, don't get into baneful workings if you don't know how to, stop it, reverse it, end the spell. But if you are and it's coming towards you, then that's not good. You want it to go away. And you also want to pay attention to the color of the smoke. So if it is dark black, that means that you are surrounded by negative energy, which again is not good. It doesn't have to be just a baneful working spell, but in general, negative energy can affect your spell. So if it burns, if the smoke is a dark black, then that means there's just negative energy in your space. So you need to cleanse. You might want to redo the spell over again. Just be aware that that negativity is surrounding you. So those are the ones that I'm familiar with. But again, it's a wide practice, this idea of pyromancy. Short answer is it's a divinatory technique to read the candle flame of your spell to see how it's going to manifest. Long answer is everything I listed above. So if that, hopefully that sort of answers your question, but if you want me to, do a deep dive, like super long answer and video about pyromancy, let me know and I will make that happen. And the last question is one that it's going to be, totally about me and my answer. So this comes from Amy, and she asked what was, my transition to witchcraft coming from an Abrahamic religion, and how, hymns and prayers just always didn't sit right with her, and how you managed that coming from a, Catholic background like I did. So this ends the sort of witchy answers and gets into my personal story. So I have talked about this on the podcast before, but I realized when Amy asked this that I don't think I've gone into my full story on my podcast before. So this is something that I have guest hosted on other people's podcasts, other witchcraft podcasts out there, and I have answered this question for them and their audience, but I don't think I've ever gone into depth on my own podcast, and definitely not here on this channel. So here's my story. I was raised Catholic. My mom was Catholic her whole life. My dad was raised Christian. He was actually born in India in 1939, so the British were still ruling. So he was not Hindu. He was raised Christian his whole life. And then when he met my mom, he converted to Catholicism, which, you know, is not that far off from each other. It's the same basic belief system. So that is how I was raised. We live very close to a basilica here in Illinois, a couple blocks away. So I always went to, you know, Catholic classes, went to mass on Sundays, and I was baptized and had first communion, but was never confirmed. So I came from a very, you know, Catholic background, but my parents believed in that, and they did prayers and rosaries, but we were not a church on Sunday kind of group. So it wasn't as big of a deal. So I never liked it. Like you, Amy, it never sat right with me. Nothing made sense. The more that they taught about the Bible, the more I was like, this is, even if it is, you know, fables and stories and hyperbole, and you're not supposed to take it at face value, it still doesn't make sense. I don't get it. I don't get Christianity. So I always had an issue with it, and I never was in the position where I thought somebody was actually like listening to my prayers. So that's what they teach you. They teach you how to say, you know, the Our Father and the Hail Mary, and teach you that somebody is answering your petitions up there. But I never felt like I was actually talking to somebody. I went through the motions and said the prayers because they wanted me to, but I never felt like anybody was there, like anybody was listening. It never even crossed my mind. I think I always was like, yeah, I'm just doing this because they're telling me to, but not because I actually believe it. So I always had an issue with it. I went to Catholic schools my whole life. I actually went to one that was Opus Dei for junior high. I went to a different school for high school, which was, again, Christian high school, but it was great. I really liked it there. I had a good experience. I was a fan of that school, but again, not so much of the teachings, but thankfully they let you take whatever kind of religion courses you wanted. So I took a world religions course and went over a lot of religions, not witchcraft, not Wicca, but it did go over, you know, a lot of Eastern philosophies, Taoism, Buddhism, Shinto. So learned a lot across the board. And that was the first experience that I was like, oh, I can do something else. Like I do not have to go down this route. So that's when it started for me. And then going into college and then law school, and then it just like evolved into witchcraft. For me personally, I did not have as hard of a time coming from religion into witchcraft. Like I already knew that I did not like religion. It wasn't working for me. And I am an only child and I am adopted. So for those two things, like my parents have to love me. They have no other choice. They picked me and they don't have any other kids. So whatever I do, they have to love me anyway. So I'm very confident in my family. Unfortunately, my dad passed away, but my mom's still great, but they knew that this, you know, religion thing wasn't for me, and whatever I picked, as long as I'm happy, they're happy, which is a great, you know, very thankful, like great family environment to be raised in, have nothing but wonderful things to say about them. So not everybody is so lucky. If that is you, then there is another witch here on YouTube, and she has been on my podcast a couple of times before, and that is B, the Stitchin' Witch. So I am going to link her below, but she came from a religious background and had a very traumatic experience, one that she can thankfully laugh about now because it's been 10 years, but it was horrible. Of just her family being horrible and trying to, you know, have exorcisms on her. It was just like everything awful that could go wrong went wrong for her. And she's very open about that now and very like willing to talk to people and help them through their traumas too. So she is great. So I will link her. So if that is, you're on that side, then absolutely go talk to her. She can help. And she's very active on my Discord server as well. So that's always linked in the description. If you want to join Discord, that's free. And she's over there chatting. So all that to say, I had a very easy transition because I never believed in anything that was like that before. So I moved then into witchcraft, and when I started, everything was Wicca based. So if you, like me, started in the 90s, all the 90s books on witchcraft are heavily Wicca influenced. They might not say that they are Wicca, but when you read them and then know what the different beliefs are now things are like more separated. Wicca was, it's in all the books. Even if they don't use the word, it influenced just about everything in the 90s. So it was a little difficult for me to get into it then, because part of what I didn't like in Catholicism was deity and the idea of deity work. I don't work with any gods or goddesses in my practice now. I believe that they exist. I believe that there are like many different iterations for many different people, but for me personally, I don't work with them. I've never felt called to. It's not something that I don't think will ever speak to me in my practice, just because of how I grew up. And that was like the major problem that I had, was deity work. I didn't believe that there was anybody up there listening, or fixing things or causing problems. I think we fix and cause our own problems. So I didn't like that part of it. So I've never adopted that into my practice now. And that was the problem that I had in the 90s to fully immerse myself in the practice the first time around, was because everything was so Wiccan based, and Wiccans believe in the god and goddess dual energy, and any other sort of deities are all part of that. So there are Celtic Wiccans who will work with the goddess Bridget, but Bridget is a part of that ultimate goddess energy. There's only the two deities, god and goddess. And even that didn't work for me as far as deity work. So I just sort of like left those things on the table and didn't fully dive into witchcraft, because I was like, well, I don't believe in half of this. So eventually though, when I started reading more and getting back into it in the 2000s, then it came out more that like, okay, there is things out there that have no Wiccan basis, no deity basis whatsoever. There's traditional witchcraft and folk-based practice, which is what I do now, that has no like deity work involved whatsoever. So that is what really called to me and got me back into it. So that is where I have been for the last however many years since, and just doing a folk-based traditional witchcraft practice that has no deity work whatsoever. And I have not had any issues with the people in my life because of that. Two reasons. First of all, I don't know if this comes across on the podcast or in YouTube videos, but I'm a very forceful personality that is very take it or leave it. I'm a Scorpio, so I don't even believe in having like a big group of friends. I'd rather have 5 really good friends that are loyal, that I can trust and love implicitly, but don't need to have that like big huge group. So I am a very forceful personality, take it or leave it, that I'm like, if you don't like what I believe and you don't want to be my friend, I'm okay with that. I'll live. There's how many billion people on the planet? I'll find somebody else. So if anybody doesn't like what I'm doing, like what I believe, like there's the door. I have no issue with that. And so nobody has ever said anything about it. I have lots of friends in my life who know all about my witchcraft practice and very open about it. And they all have their own religions and believe their own things, and they have no problems with what I do. Like I mentioned, my husband is Catholic. He always has been. I went to the all-girls version of the high school with his sister, and he went to the all-boys version. So we've known each other for years, and him and his family have remained Catholic forever. He prays to God every night. He doesn't go to church every Sunday, but he goes on the holidays. It's generally something that he believes in deeply, and we still have no issues, because I think it's all about respect, and I respect what he believes. I don't try to talk him out of it. I'm not trying to convince him that God's not real and this is the right way. Like, who knows that? Nobody knows what the real story is. Nobody knows exactly what happens after we die. So who am I to say that his version is wrong? Maybe he's exactly right. Maybe I'm going to die and find out that he was right all along. You never know. So I never try to convince him that what he's doing is wrong or anything like that. And likewise, he doesn't try to convince me that anything is wrong. And I think it helps probably that my practice is very like herbalism, like folk based, because I will make him, an immunity booster with elderberries using my witchcraft, and it helps him get better, and he knows it. So he knows that it works. So we have no sort of issues on that front. But again, I think it's just being very respectful and also asserting yourself and knowing that you can believe what you want. Nobody else needs to think it's right or wrong. You do what you want to do, and that your beliefs can change over time. Because mine were not the same as what I believed in the 90s or early 2000s, or to now. Like, my practice has changed even in the last 2 years since I started the podcast. So all that to say, I had a long but easy journey coming from a Catholic upbringing, and I have not had any issues. Again, I will link B if you want to talk to somebody who did have a traumatic experience and you want help and validation, and she is definitely the person to go to for that. So I hope that answers your question about my upbringing in general and where I am now, how I deal with all of that in my life, and gives you a little insight into me. And if you have already clicked on this video because that was not the part for you, Amy, thanks for the question and for still watching. But that is everything that I have for this particular Q&A. I think it was probably pretty long, so I'm gonna wrap it up here. And if you have any other questions, please let me know in the comments because I can definitely do a part 2. And I will see you next week.